Tēnā tātou I wainganui o te kingitanga o Tainui. Tēnā koe te kingi tūheitia e manaaki mai I a mātou kua hui I tēnei rā. Tēnā hoki koe Leone, nāu I whakatau I a māua ko Helen. Tēnā hoki koe Mike, me Tina, kōrua ngā kai whakahaere o tēnei hui. Mihi nui I a kōrua, nā kōrua I tonua mai ki a māua ko Helen, ki hara mai hei kōrero ki te iwi nei. It's wonderful to be here in the rohe of Tainui under the mantle of King Tūheitia. So we pay our due honour to those who stand here before us, beside us, and outside in the world beyond us. So, Leone, it's wonderful to share this research project that we've been engaged with. It's more than a research project for us. It jumps out from beyond the research and takes over your whole life. So that's actually where we are. I got used to just leading a nice, quiet academic life, and now to find that the academic life is chasing the Children in Crisis program and putting a conference out here. So now I have to betray the other hat that I've put on. So I've got this growing stack of hats that seem to follow what it means to be a Māori academic. So I'm really happy that under Mana Ririki, Helen and I are here to make our presentation and to account for who we are and what it is that we're doing. And while Michael and Tina expect us to do a theoretical framework around the work that we do, it's actually a very difficult thing to fit the theoretical framework within the crisis parameters that we find our Māori model that we've developed to try to fit within, because it's sort of a lawless, very difficult to theorise and to fit into the social norms that we're used to working within a sociological framework or within a psychological framework, or it definitely doesn't fit in the business sector with its careful rules and mechanisms that you need to fit within the economic parameters. And as for the political statements that we're trying to fit within to answer the question, what do NGOs do when they tell their governments about the issues that are going on? Do their policies and practices change to accommodate us? So that's what we're hoping to go with, Leone, and while you chair our session to try to keep us online, we'll try to keep within time. But we have a habit of sort of drifting over here and drifting over there as we try to look for the issues to present to you. So we've had to cut a whole lot of things out in order to bring our session. And Helen is really the worker and the presenter of the disciplined ideas that appear. She is part of our main administration of how the work is done and carefully reported on. I'm simply the chairperson who just presides over things and say, what was our agenda again, Helen? So here we are. We need to read off the screen, both Helen and I, that one, not this one, because it's much easier. The frames of the glasses, every time you get a new pair, the moderations that they go up with, they still don't seem to work. But anyway. So that was a difficult question. We were really just getting on with the job, Michael, of doing Mana Ririki work, which is demanding enough. But we kind of forget that about the government's role. So we had this little pepeha for you. Governments come and go. They make changes. But the simple reality is that many of their policies and practices over time have resulted in mass destruction rather than improving the world they have tried to serve. That's what we come up with at the end. And so we want to tell you that before we even start this program with you, okay? So that's the answer to our question. Now we're going to work backwards. Te Kāhui Mana Ririki is a non-government organisation, and its goal was simply to eliminate Māori child abuse, just a small objective. And without the resources of government, what can an NGO expect of a government when we're really trying to grapple with that big issue? And then we think, hey, wasn't that the government's job to do that? Isn't that what they're appointed for? What resources do non-government organisations have? So who are we? The work of Mana Ririki is research, advocacy and communications. Now it's a bit funny because when we get later on and open up the government's organisation under whānau order, it's embarrassing to find they got the same tasks. They're meted out with those tasks that the work of Mana Ririki, without us knowing they were going to invent whānau order within a few years after we had found ourselves dragged up to our feet, as we were sitting by quietly, having a quiet life, not trying to be a non-government organisation, just trying to be ourselves. And then, of course, I was trying to be an academic who should know things. Move us on. Who are we? Well, I'm the chairperson. Naida Glavish, who most Māori communities know very well, and you don't dare talk back to Naida. Naida is Ngāti Whātua, and she's just about on every government committee that's going. So she's really, in secret, the government agent on Mana Ririki. And she watches every move that we make. Dame June Mariu, when I first knew June, in our school days, she's a little bit older than I am, but she was a great netballer and really part of Queen Vic. And she's a Queen Vic old girl. Now I've got mixed up with them. I'm really a hokorere old girl. Nothing to do with Queen Vic, but I'm running the business of Queen Vic right now, trying to get it re-established. So June and I sort of meet on many platforms, and look at all those letters and things behind their names, these people who are working with us. Judge Tai Hakure Jury, most of us simply know him as Eddie, and we went round to see him last year because we said, oh look, we're getting into a bit of trouble, Mana Ririki, and we're making pronouncements out there, and we really don't see much of the board. Do you want to give us any guidance? I'm actually representing the board and its opinions, and I've been going out there saying a lot of things and responding to what's happening. He said, I'm so thankful you're saying them, because we should be doing that frontline work with the grassroots, and we don't do it because we're so busy running Waitangi tribunals, making pronouncements, doing all of this high-level work, and it never seems to trickle down. And he really enjoyed meeting us to talk to us about what it was that was important about Mana Ririki. Here he is, the judge in courtrooms, talking about violence, passing down sentences on people, but he could never get to the part where you make the people who are having the problems try to understand how to intervene in what it is that's going wrong. And he was applauding what we were doing and promising to do more. And whatever it was that we did, he was there backing us and following what we were doing. Dr. Toby Curtis, who doesn't know Dr. Toby Curtis if you're in education? He's been in education for so long that most people kind of think he's just an eternal person. He, right at the beginning of Mana Ririki, he was there. He was there. And it was one of his mokopuna who was murdered. And he really got annoyed when he was being taken to talk to somebody. And Honaka, who is my relation, and who was the first, he was really the founder of our Mana Ririki project. That was his great mate, Toby Curtis. Toby Curtis went to him as a Ngāti Pro person, to a Te Arawa person, and said, hey, it's your whanaunga over here, it's your mokopuna. And Toby got a shock. The name Glassy is not a Curtis name. And yet once he started to make inquiries, he realised how close this mokopuna was. He was our first kaumātua that stood up and advocated for the child. Advocated. No Māori kaumātua since have we heard put themselves, their reputation on the line to speak up for what was going wrong in his whānau. So he is a dynamic member of Mana Ririki. Anton Blanc is my nephew, Helen's nephew. Helen and I represent a whānau standing up. Mana Ririki we don't own, but we have become the first whānau that put together a project. We talk about whānau involvement, and so what we're challenging each whānau in our workshops, that if they really want to take our booklets that we have with photos of our mokopuna on it and change those photos and put their mokopuna photos on it, we want them to do that. All we've got is a template. Take out our photos, put their photos on top of it, change any Ngāti Pro dialect words in it, or any Ngāpuhi dialect words in it that Helen has put in. Sometimes you see tipuna and sometimes you see tupuna. And we just sort of say, yeah, roll with the dialect, it's fine. And we don't want to get emotional about which is the standardised version or which is the dialectal version. We're fine. It's the issue we're attacking. And so I've been doing a big research in the Tai Tukero and getting really my beans from the Tai Tokero about what the Ngāti Pro doing up here, trying to tell our history to us. But I'm saved by my cousin here. Because, see the name Mountain? That's a famous word up there, a famous name, famous tipuna up there in the north, that my father's sister married into. And this is her daughter. So, this is our whānau that we did manage to reach into the Tai Tokero and get some influence over there. And so Helen is part of our ka whānau who have been tracking along deliberately as a whānau, because that's the only way you can do it. When you speak as Māori, you have to speak from your whakapapa roots of who you are. And you try to deal with issues as best you can. But in the end, when in a colonised, in a Western framework, it's only your opinion. It's your opinion. But when you step over this other side, this other cultural side, it's your rights as the iwi kainga, as the whānau, to speak. So you speak one whānau to another. So that's how we're going to speak to you today. You're our whānau. So we believe that our intervention strategy is whānau to whānau. We share with you, you share with us. Because we are talking, children belong to a family. And when they have a crisis, the family resolves it. So our resolutions come out of family teachings. And that's how we stand there. Now that's really quite a big learning for an academic to shift all of those positionings that we put ourselves in. You're either a left winger or a right winger. You're a Tory or you're a Conservative. All of these labels that hang around the world that we move in. But we're moving you deliberately into a Māori world because we are talking about Māori. That's all who we can talk for. We can't talk for anybody else. And you'll see through, as we go through and make our presentation, why we're speaking and why Hone was forced to his feet to stand to speak and to create the response. Because the government was making a response on a major issue we found ourselves in 2006, 2007. And we didn't have a committee that was dealing with this. We didn't have a position on this. Everybody else seemed to be always dealing with it. And more, in the 50s, it was unusual to find Māori children, we didn't have anything called SIFs to sort us out. It was just a shameful thing to be in social welfare care. We had Māori welfare officers. That was the limit of it. And it was the Māori welfare officer's job to go out and make sure there were no Māori children in these homes. They used to just have these children's homes. And they didn't really have very many brown faces in those homes. And so the Māori welfare officers had to go and look at those homes, and if there were any, they'd find out what their name was, and then go back to the community and harass that family. Do you know that your mokopuna is over there? And the kuia and the kaumata will be off to go and get them and take them home. And then sort out the parent or whoever needed sorting out. Usually the grandparent didn't sort it out. They just added another mokopuna to their house, to their one-bedroom house often. And this child just grew up in the kainga. And so we actually don't have that anymore. Suddenly, Hone, Helen and I realised we are the kaumātua and kuia of our whānau. Let's get on with the story. Tell them. Oh, I missed out. The main man.
Tainui connection.
The Tainui connection. After doing a mihi to the to Tainui at the beginning, how can I forget? Our man, Hori. Where's his name?
Between Nader and June.
Oh, between Nader and June. We got him up in the right place. We got him up nice up high. On our list for you. Hori awa. Hori awa is our... We want to know where all our finances are, or if we've been spending it right, we've got to go and humbly talk to Hori, get our P's and Q's right. He's not just Hori of, of no consequence. Look at his letters behind his name, plus he put accounting and everything else onto it. He looks after the Tainui business of what's going on. He's the one that tells that Tukuroi Morgan whether he can get on a plane, or whether he can afford to buy another hotel, or whether he can buy up that tower, add to that tower business place, which I heard there was a real lobby to put those motorways to run past it, so nobody will go there, they'll go to the other organisation. Not used to having Māori business standing out, with their nose high in the air. So I think Te Pui will be pretty pleased with this uri of hers. Hori, she went begging in the streets of Auckland, selling kumaras to rebuild the Tainui structure at Ngārua Wāhia. So we still go to Ngārua Wāhia and we go and see our friend Hori. So that's our board, and that's who we are as the Mana Ririki. I better hand over to Helen so you can actually see what we do.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I've always been in the position of either following Hone Kā or Kuni Jenkins. And I can tell you it's not a very good one. They talk about not appearing with animals and children. Don't appear after Hone Kā. I'm saying now I've got Kuni to contend with. Because they both have this skill of public speaking, and they also are quite happy, like most of my ka whānau, to wander off into wondrous places and then have someone whisper, "Don't forget the kaupapa." So Kuni did say, "Don't forget to remind me." Okay, so I didn't have to read. So I am Research and Development Manager for Mana Ririki, and I do research, and we commission research, and write programs, develop resources, and Anton oversees it as CEO. He's at the moment on a month's leave in Europe, as you do when you're CEO. But we haven't told Tori yet. That's Kuni's job. Kuni was really keen that we state the rights of children, because that is our basic international connection with children, that they have all these rights under UNCROC, and that all children have the right to protection from any discrimination. Hang on, what am I doing? Yeah. That all children have the right to protection from any discrimination on any grounds, that the best interests of the child should be the primary consideration in all matters affecting the child, that children have the rights to life, survival and development, and that all children have the right to an opinion, and for that opinion to be heard in all contexts. So when you look at these rights, when we say that they need safety, protection and the rights of adults. And you look at it like this, you can see how our children don't have all those rights. We know immediately that they we're our workers. I'll just get this right.
Oh, you need it to face you.
Now this is actually what Kuni was going to talk about, the intervention remedies dominated by social justice, inputs and outputs are to achieve. Now the thing about the work that I do, I did my master's many decades ago, and I'm not as current with all the models that Kuni deals with every day with her graduate students and in her work. And what she said after last week, oh, what's our theoretical model for this conference talk? I said, oh, wait. And she said, well, who are we following? What model have we got? So she's been wrestling with this, and as she said, it's very difficult when you've got an organic, growing organisation coming out of the earth and the sky and dealing with grassroots issues to fit a model. So what do? We take bits from here and there, and Kuni was going to talk about this social justice and intervention remedies.
Yes, Helen. The social justice model was always where Hone was going to start from and end with, because that's what made him an NGO. And it's not surprising that we would go straight away to the UN model or the treaty for children to work from, because that was where his work largely was. He worked with a lot of UN teams throughout the world. He really did have his finger on what was going on in Africa, what was going on in Asia, what was going on. Hone was one of those people that really could match the foreign minister in the government and know what was going on in every country. But he would know the harsh truth, because that was how he spent most of his life. And he was always going to make us an NGO. So, you know, we were really, that's a badge we wear proudly, to be an NGO and work in those fields and to be known internationally in that arena. So when we quote people like Desmond Tutu and those people who are working in the forefront, and the Nelson Mandela case, those people, Hone sat at their tables in many of the places that he went. Throughout Asia, he's known. He was known that big fat Maori man, like Kai. And he knew where all the good eating places are when you go to those countries. We never went to the posh hotels, to have white linen service and that. We knew where all the places to go. If one was taking you, you knew you were going to have a delicious meal. That you'd sit in Korea, at a place in front of the little barbecues and eat raw liver and things like that you sort of wouldn't think of here back home, on the marae, just a boiler, what we do with there. But the social justice issues were always what faced us. We never saw poverty. And so the conference has been heavily focused on issues of poverty and that crime and violence come out of those environments. And for us, the closest I can go to in thinking of the poverty was about poverty of the mind. And Hone saw that in terms of poverty of the cultural tikanga. The tikanga Māori that has been crushed out in the lives of those that were facing us under our Mana Ririki banner that we were working towards. And so the urgent advocacy that we were being called on was that, I keep forgetting her name, I do it every time. I just describe her as the blonde lady with the big long earrings.
Yes, that's all you need to say.
And everybody knows that she was the Minister of Social Welfare. And she stood and made a pronouncement about Māori children and what was to happen to them, and how they were going to be taken out of their families. And she actually was the birth of whānau ora, because there's been such a reaction to that. And it was about the protection and safety of children, as if Māori didn't know about the protection and safety of their children. Because it did look like, after the Nea Glassy incident, followed quickly by the Kahui twins' murder. And it did look like this is just getting worse and worse. And every time we hear of another incident in the papers of a child abuse case, the violence, and we knew it would be a Māori child. 9 times out of 10, it's a 1 in every 2 cases is a Māori case. So we needed to find a voice. And that voice, you couldn't get a bigger voice than Honeka at the time. And a more terrifying person, you couldn't, and in effect him being the one to hold up the banner of the Māori child, to be the defender, to be the protector, to be the one that's going to have a say, to be the one who's going to go into that family quarter and deal to it. So we were certainly quickly into social justice issues, but we were dealing with it in a different way. You know, he's got the audacity to die. To think that this problem is going to be over. But it's not. And I'm sort of standing in there, how on earth am I supposed to be able to follow in that work? But it's not that you're doing anything to the work. You're making sure that it gets heard, it gets to the places that need to resource it, that need to facilitate it, that needs to talk to the agencies that do service it. So it was the intervention tools that we needed to control the social problems among some Māori whānau, and to try to redevelop in them a strong hegemony within Māori of a traditionally accepted social order. And, you know, the Frere model of freedom from oppression. Hone absolutely, he really just about shifted the Bible over there and drove, and then he just put pedagogy of the oppressed in the middle of his table. And every time he gave a sermon, once he discovered Frere, he could guarantee lots of Frere contexts in it that he could use to interpret his Anglicanism from within it. So, you're next.
Oh yeah. And so our intervention was that we became advocates for Māori children speaking out on violence,
Okay.
and that we were talking back to the government agencies through research and communications. That was our plan. And we
Right.
And Frere's, this is what he said: in order to be more human, you must act. And so, Honeka acted, and Mana Ririki action began. We, hang on, I'll just change it. So that's Hone. He will be, if he's around, I don't think it will be, but he would be so pleased to hear his name mentioned so often. He loved having his ego. There was a context of our coming at the time that we did, arising at the time that we did, and that was when we had the anti-smacking bill put forward by Sue Bradford and the Green Party, and for its repeal. And we had the whole country talking about whether they should smack their children lightly or in any way people pleased, or whether it was anyone's business how people treated their children. And it was based on the whole thing that a man's castle owns his castle, which is a fortified place that you build to stop others from getting in. So inside that became a license for abusive behaviour from many people. And that is what was the opposite of our traditional times, that living in a small village or in a kainga, that your business was everyone's business. And those of us who grew up in small towns really knew that. So that a man's home with his castle didn't fit. So anyway, 2007 in May, the Parliament voted to repeal it by a huge majority. In August of 2007,
Keep going.
We've
got 1 minute.
We've got what?
We've got 1 minute.
Did you, so because, we what? So it still goes to 10
Take a couple of minutes and then, yeah.
So they can ask us questions about what we do.
No, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. We didn't start at 10 o'clock.
Okay. Go through. Keep going
Go,
through.
keep going.
Because this
Cup of tea will be late.
Really, no. This discussion about how we treated our children created everyone got very emotionally involved in it. So it was in the national mind, as it were. When in August 2007, Nia Glassie was murdered, the media took it up and rode with this emotional happening, about the horror of Māori child abuse, and it was built on this because we'd already been talking as a nation about how parents treat their children and about parenting, that this suddenly took off. And everybody expressed the horror of Nia's death. In September, MSD delivered its Not Okay campaign. So it's not okay for family violence, but it's okay to ask for help. That simple message beamed into living rooms regularly. So that started, and that built its into that context of parental behaviour and the safety of children. And then in November, Honika called the Māori Child Abuse Summit, and then there were 120 providers who dealt with Māori family whānau, and they said that we needed a national organisation, we needed to advocate for Māori children, and we needed to communicate our messages of positive parenting and non-violence as our tūpuna brought up children to parents. So that was the beginning of Mana Ririki. I'll just have a look at this context of violence. So our context of violence is that we have a lot of community violence, and Māori are involved in that more than other groups. and that we experience more than Pākehā and Pacific Islanders, that more Māori women, 17 to 24 years of age, and older are abused. Māori children are 4 times more likely to be hospitalised. These figures come out of the National Review of Hospital Statistics of New Zealand. More Māori children are murdered. And the most unsafe place, which is where those red arrows are pointing, is the home. That 1-year-old Māori males are most at risk, and the danger ages are from 0 to 4. So our homes are not safe. This is a direct contrast to traditional parenting by our whānau. Oh, wrong way. So you had tons of statistics. These, you know, of the 10 children murdered every year, 5 are Māori. That's a dreadful, that simple one is a dreadful statistic. So we need to look at that. And the whānau water policy, where the government tells people what it wants instead of the NGOs giving them the grassroots issues, is not an ideal. It's not an ideal situation. It's the reverse of what should happen. We should be delivering to them, and then they act on that. Instead, we've got this policy coming down. And these are its policies, is to help whānau achieve the state of whānau order, which is what ours is, really, yeah, and which a lot of NGOs want to achieve. And what has Mana Ririki been doing to support government initiatives? We've got all the research we do. We advocate for Māori children, and we're developing communication strategies in all fields. Social marketing, that's what Anton's field is. That's the research we've done. You can get this.
Yes, you can get it off our.
And so we did this advocacy with the Māori MPs, and we had 11 of 21 Māori MPs in Wellington meet. And Te Ururoa Flavel suggested they hold up a Yes Vote banner, and they did, and that happened on July the 30th. And Paula Bennett turned up to the discussions, but none of National were allowed to come to that, holding up the Yes Vote banner. And so Every Child Counts is working on a cross-party group. And so we've begun a survey of maltreated youth to ask them about their abuse, their treatment, and what they think should have happened to them once their abuse was disclosed. And that's proceeding. And we also realised that all the indices that are available about the well-being of Māori and Pacifica children are not from Māori and Pacifica people. We are measured against the US and the UK and the other group, but not our own, so we're developing an index of well-being for Māori and Pacifica. What is it? Oh, well, that's all the communication strategies. Wondrous stuff. And then we run these workshops. 45 we've done more than, I think it's 50. But the providers have found that it's the content of the workshops of our parenting model is very relevant to their work. And we have all of those statistics. And we're developing in each region trainers who deliver the program. And the Mana Ririki are developing it. And we have one for the Plunket over here. They are really in behind Mana Ririki, they're champions here. And up in Taitokerau, they're very interested. We have our own evaluations, but we're having an independent one done of our program, which is necessary. And This is testimonies from parents. You've taught me a lot about the parent I was, the parent I'm now being, positive, and applying new texts that helped me so much. There are lots of them like that. These young parents who didn't know that there were ways to behave with children rather than growling at them all the time and giving them a clip over the ear, because that's the way they've been brought up, to doing finding these other techniques work. And then I'm not going to do that, I'll just flick through and show you some pretty pictures. The first whānau we developed in our philosophy was taking that first whānau, who were who?
Rangi and Papa.
Thank you, Sarah. Rangi and Papa and their children, first whānau. So if you look at the stories of Rangi and Papa
Click on the pictures
and
while
their
you're
children,
talking.
you find that we have the first rules for behaving, how you behave in whānau and how the ideal behaviours. And this is from Te Arawa, Rangi and Papa. And tapu was laid over the world because Rangi went to Papa Tuanuk, and instead of completing the heavens, which was the contract he made with Io Matua, that idea of the contract with the atua is controlled behaviour in the Māori world, and it also protected our children. So children were considered tapu because when they were born they were dedicated to the atua, who were there to protect them. And the tapu was very powerful as a method of social control. This way.
Just go through quickly. We need to finish.
The least bit worried. This was the separation. So the behaviour that happened here, which was controlled by respect and a lot of love, and we have chants that come out of this where they're appealing. There was very little anger. The only angry one was Tāwhiri Matea. This is Tāne, with this beautiful Tāne, who, it's a bit weird. I mean, obviously the painter got distracted by the beauty of this body because he was surrounded by his whānau. They were there. He never did this on his own. And there are a lot of symbolism there that we should look at. Tangaroa was another one, Tāwhiri Matea, and Tāne as a husband and a father. So Hene Ahu One was the first one, Hene Titama. And Tāne's job was to help prepare the world for humans, so he had to bring in the female element so that humanity could begin. And needless to say, Tāne found females everywhere and tried to produce with every one of them. No, didn't work. Anyway, his mum helped him. Hang on, I'm trying to. Hene Titama introduced morality to the world. When she didn't go to the underworld in shame, she chose to go and to that world of the spirit and the mind. And she said to Tāne, you look after the children in the world of light, and I will look after them when they all come to me. And so her job was to prepare the world for humans and to signal that incest was unacceptable. And our Mana Ririki primary principle of child rearing is ata ahua, atahua, the face of God, which is perfect. So Monika says that ata is short for atua, and ahua, the face or appearance, is also another word for atua. So children are perfect. So tā te tamariki tana mahi wa wahi taha, that it's the job of the children to break the calabash. So the calabash, the gourds, held precious oils, and they were really treasured. And as a child, they became the symbol of the rules, the precious things, the taonga to guiho, and children were allowed to break them and test the boundaries because what they were doing was perfect. That's what they're supposed to do. So that's our basic